Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello, everyone. My name is Umar Hamid. I'm your host on the No Limit Selling podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategy, and advice on how you can become better, stronger, faster. Just before we get started, I've got a question for you. Do you have a negative voice inside your head? We all do, right? I'm going to help you remove that voice in under 30 days guaranteed. Not only remove it, but transform it. So instead of the voice that sabotages you, there's one that propels you to much higher levels of performance and success. There's a link in the show notes. Click on it to find out more. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the No Limit Selling podcast. Today, we've got Jonathon Armoyan with us today. He's a realtor. He's got Tony Montana behind him. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What's kind of interesting is like Tony Montana became such an icon, even for like the rapper community.
Oh yeah,
Those gunslingers from like where drugs meet citizens. He's a hero, but lots of negatives, but also positives, right? That's one of the lessons in life is you don't have to just look to Mother Teresa to find positive attributes. Sometimes people that are on the other spectrum have attributes that are really important to us, right?
exactly. Yeah, you just take the positive things out. You know, I don't condone drugs or any type of thing like that. But you take the positive things out, and you see like Tony Montana. Like one of the biggest sayings I hear in business is like your word is everything, right?
Yes.
That came. I don't know if it came from that movie, but it was a big scene in the movie, right? So.
But he's also got another quote in the movie, if I remember. I tell the truth even when I lie. It's a quote that he says, which maybe isn't quite spot on.
Yeah.
Which quote are you thinking of?
I definitely like the word is everything. Or when he was coming up, and then Sosa, the big boss, came up and he's like, are you a spy, like your partner or whatever? And he's like, he got mad at him, and he was a small guy at the time, but he got mad at the big boss, and he's like, look, don't call me a liar, you know, like my word is everything to me. So it's just things like that would resonate for me. Certain quotes he would take, or like certain things he would do, like gestures and stuff like that. I would see it in a lot of like big businessmen, successful businessmen, and I would just be like, I remember when I was younger and I first saw that movie, I'd be like, are these businessmen trying to act like Scarface, or like what are they doing here? Like, so I don't know, a lot of stuff, and there's like a lot of older movies that have those good quotes, and they really resonate with you, right?
Absolutely. I think what's kind of interesting is, certainly we have the luminaries of the world, like the Lincolns and the Laura Seacourts of the world. We kind of quote them, but movies and provide such meaningful quotes because they're in a modern context and they're more accessible to the masses, saying, oh, Darth Vader said this, or in this movie that was said. And quotes give you the ability to think about a situation and see it from a different filter, which I think allow us to be better human beings.
100% agree. No, I'm big on that. I love business movie like Wall Street, the original, not Wolf on Wall Street, but like the original with Gordon. Love that movie. Like it's just it gives you an idea of what kind of personality it takes to be a businessman. And they're not like, some of them are obviously over exaggerated movies, right? But you got to watch it with a grain of salt and then take it for what it is, and just take the parts out of it that you think would be useful, right? And
so there's an old adage, you eat the meat and you leave the bones. And what that means is, in whatever philosophy that you're looking at, no one philosophy is going to be absolutely perfect for you.
Right.
But you are going to see some elements say, oh, that's really useful to me. And I think that's why, not many people know this, by the way, that's why we have almost 8 billion people in the world, is not to crowd out the world, is to learn from other human beings. Because when you look at somebody, so let me ask you a question, Jonathon. Who is somebody in the world that you admire?
Oh, I mean, are you talking like an idol, or are you talking?
Well, it could be a grandparent, a coach, a friend.
My grandmother.
What's her name? What's your grandmother's name?
Armoyan, and she is she's 84 years old and she's an absolute hustler. Like she is still trying to crack deals and do business, even though she's okay, you know. My dad and my uncle have done well, so like, you know, she's taking care of.
So take a look at her. There's other nephews grandchildren that she has.
Yeah.
And if they were to describe the attribute that she possesses, it might be different than the one. The hustle may not be the one that speaks to them. And when we see other human beings and we admire attributes, it tells you more about yourself than that other person. That person highlights it for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. And some people, it's innate, like they're almost born with this trait. Some people, you know, you can also develop it over time. But like she was born very poor, right? To the point where like she would like she would like hide over a loaf of bread. Like I think she grew up in old Armenia and then moved to Lebanon because of the genocide. So she grew up in a hard time, and her father died very young, and she had to literally survive, literally. So you know, and the fact that she's still healthy and she's so active. Like I've never seen a lady that old, and I'm not just saying she's my grandmother, but I've never seen a lady that old so confident and like smart, because she's just not doing, she's doing things that she likes, and she's not losing her memory or anything, because once you take them out of their routine, they lose their memory. But like she's still trying to rent out, like you know, I have a unit, I have a separate house I built close to hers, and I have a unit on the bottom floor, and she's like, I think we can rent that out for like 2,500 or something like this. And I'm like, why do you need
go,
money?
Granny, go. Yeah. Can I give you a piece of advice?
Yeah.
Don't get into a knife fight with her.
No,
it's on her, not you.
I totally do the project, you know, I don't have time, but I'm like, she worked with a project manager and she built the space out. And I was like, look, like, you know, we don't want to take our privacy. Like, we didn't need to rent it out. We can do business outside. But she just like took initiative and did it, you know what I mean? And
nice.
I'm just shocked. Like, I don't think she'll ever stop. You know what I mean? And she was my original inspiration. She was my hype man when I first became a realtor. She even got me my first lead, which turned into a sale. So she's someone I have a
bravo for her.
Around the respect for. Yeah.
So tell us about your real estate career. When did you start in real estate?
November 2019, but I've been in the, like, that's as an agent. I've been in actual like construction, real estate, things like this much before that. And then I've always been in sales in one way or the other, right? Actually, how I got into sales was I was selling. So I was working for Armco, a land development company, and they had a building with 3 kitchens in it.
Right.
And essentially they're like, can you sell like these kitchen stuff, even though I had no idea. And then they had another building where they had a spa they had foreclosed on, so they seized all these assets, and there was crazy, like a reverse osmosis machine in there, which turns salt water into fresh water, like stuff. Wow. I had no idea what the price was, right? And then they had one last building that they were gonna plan on tearing down because they got a development agreement to build 25 stories there, and the current building was 9. And they're like salvage all the office furniture in there. So it was 9 floors of office furniture I had to sell. So I just ran auctions out, and I had a timeline, right? Because those buildings were being sold. So they're like, yeah, the closing date is here. And it was like a month out, you got to get it all done. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so much, right? I did. So I hosted auctions for all 3 of those buildings. And essentially they went well, and we salvaged what we could. But like I was selling so much, I didn't even realize like what Armco didn't want me to sell, and I ended up selling like their company barbecue and stuff like this. And the whole office was scurrying around on Canada Day, like looking for this company barbecue. And then someone's like, have you seen this? This used to be in that building we sold. I was like, yeah, I sold that. I got a good deal on it. And then after that, my uncle's like, you got to go to real estate. He's like, you got to do this. So,
So tell us about a deal in real estate that wasn't going well and that you saved.
oh, there's a lot.
That's every deal, but tell us about one of them.
Okay, so one of them, so I sell a lot of new construction, right? And essentially one of them, there was these split entries out in the suburban area of, like, a more suburban area of Halifax, about an hour away from the city. And it was a new construction build, but it had mold in it. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is unacceptable. But it wasn't even mold, it was mildew. So it was just the fact that it was in an airtight space and they didn't put a humidifier in there, and I was double landing it too, right? So I was on both the buy and sell side, and you have to please both parties at that time. And their first time home buyer, like this and that. And essentially I would just play around with the conditions. So like I would write an amendment and I would be like, if mold is not, like, after property inspection, if mold is not retributed, like, we'll pay, like, this amount is owed, or this, or we would do, like, or the seller has to take on that expense, and then essentially, like, just fix it himself, and then we inspect it again. And it got to the point where it was closing day, and they were still fighting about this, and, like, I'm like, oh my God, this thing isn't gonna close, right? And then I would tell them, I'm like, let's do a letter of undertaking. So essentially we closed this house because they needed a place to move. Like, they had no choice, they were going to be homeless. And it's kind of hard taking on the pressure of, you know what I mean? Of like a new home buyer, and, like, like, they're going to be homeless if they don't have this thing. And like you feel bad, right? So I'm like, no, we'll change this deal in any way without manipulating the price, but at the same time, by doing a letter of undertaking, by getting everyone what they want. So I had to make the seller happy, I had to make the buyer happy, and then I had to also not change anything as far as price or delay in closing or something like that. So there's quite a bit of new construction deals. And then the other hardest time, I'd say, is when there was almost nothing on the market. And there's a $850,000 house.
Jonathan, do me a favor, put the pen down. I can hear the clicking.
Oh, sorry. I get fidgety. And then essentially I found out after we got our offer accepted, but there's like 25 offers or something like that on this thing. And our offer was the exact same as 3 other offers, the exact same price. But the reason the buyer took us, or the seller took us, was because I had we'll submit a $50,000 deposit within the first day, and we have five days to meet conditions, and then we'll do your ideal closing, right? Mm-hmm. So essentially $50,000, like,
that won the day.
Sorry, yeah, that won it just because of the condition. And it was mostly because of the $50,000 deposit, but at the end of the day, the buyer was going to pay that anyways. It just looked better on paper, but it's the same damn thing.
All right, so a lot of realtors don't consider themselves salespeople.
Yeah.
But real estate is selling. So talk to me about that disconnect. Like, sometimes sales is seen as a dirty word. It's not. That movie behind you, Scarface, got sold to someone to make that movie. Al Pacino got sold to be in the movie. So selling is important. Your thoughts on selling in real estate?
Mark Cuban says it best. All businesses end in sales. There's not a business that doesn't end in sales. So if you can't sell, you can't run a business, right? Like, whether you're selling a service or selling a product, every business is sales.
The purpose of a business is to make a profit, and you can't make a profit unless you sell something.
Exactly. And in sales, it seems like it's a rare thing to to come across like an actual good salesman, right? And it's hard to come, and what comes with sales is you have to be very persistent. You're not the smartest guy, but maybe you're the most persistent, and you'll just drive people nuts until they either sign.
So there's a fine line between there. So we've got somebody booked the appointment between you and I.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody else that was booked on an appointment. I said, how was AJ booking this appointment? They said she was persistent,
yeah,
but not pushy. So initially I said no, but she convinced me to say yes in a way that I felt good about myself. And she did a brilliant job. And I think that's what selling's about. People have this illusion of what salespeople are like. It's like, hey, Jonathon, how are you? And it's like, that's not selling. My first experience in selling was I worked in this family business, and the guy from Hitachi, Canada, their sales manager came to sell to us VCRs, TVs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He was the most mild-mannered person you ever met. He was the number one salesperson, and he worked part-time in an appliance store, and he was their number one salesperson, even though other people worked full-time. And it was the first person I went, wait a minute, being a salesperson is not about being pushy. It's about being helpful.
No, pushy is like the absolute wrong tactic to take in sales. It's the number one wrong tactic. Or sending an email that's like not genuine, or calling someone and it doesn't seem genuine. You have to build genuine relationships. And when you build genuine relationships, you get clients who trust you, who become repeat buyers. And that's how the business grows, right? Repeat buyers are my best clients. Like, I have few clients that when I started my first year, you don't have repeat buyers that much in your first year. So like, when I reevaluated myself going into my second year, I was like, I gotta focus on these repeat buyers, and I gotta essentially give them all the attention they need, and then obviously still focus on other buyers. But these guys come first because they're doing 10 transactions a year with me. So I got to make sure they're getting the best deals, and I got to make sure that they're happy with me. And I got to call them up every once in a while and follow up with them, right? So like my repeat buyers and my and the people like who I enjoy working with. Well, I enjoy sales overall. You gotta enjoy it, right? You can't force yourself like to sell, you know what I mean? Like either you like it or you don't. And like there's a lot of new realtors that are joining now, but they gotta really love sales, you know what I mean? Like it's not something you can half-ass. You just won't survive, right? Like another famous thing I was told when I was a realtor is like 1% or it was 5% of the realtors make 95% of the money, right? So, and like that's just the truth.
So one of the skills that's hard for people to do, but is essential in life and especially sales, is the art of listening.
Yeah.
Because people reveal so much stuff, and if you're in your head thinking about what you're going to say next, you miss it. So how do you stay in the zone? How do you actually listen?
You ask certain questions that bring out certain, it's like cross-examining someone in court, right? You ask certain questions that will bring out certain answers, and then you'll get an idea essentially. Like I was with my buddy yesterday, and we were at one of his rentals, and he was talking to his tenants, and they hadn't paid rent for a while, and but they had this huge like SUV, and I was like, oh, that's a big car, like this and that, and they're like, yeah, it's $250 to fill it with gas. And then I go to my buddy, I'm like, look, they're not paying their $1,400 rent, but like every 2 weeks they're filling this thing up with $250. So like there's like key points you catch on to and stuff like this, and like he didn't register that. I'm like, man, you got to pick up on this stuff. I go, that car's probably like a $60,000 car too, you know what I mean? So things like this, cues, or even if I want to find out the truth about something, I'll ask 3 different people, and then collect what I can, what bits of information, and then combine them together, and then I'll probably
better
idea, right? So I mean, it's just little things that people say. Like I remember I worked for a hotel when I was in university, like a summer co-op, and the accounting people, the head of accounting came into like our meeting with all the head managers one day, and the boss was there, and she's talking about this new car she bought, and the first thing the boss says to her is, "I pay you too much." You know what I mean? So it's like, if you buy a new car, keep it to yourself. Do not tell your boss.
Even though they don't pay you too much, but it's still like and that hurts, especially when they're not paying you too much.
I know,
And
I
it's like,
know.
come on, what do you mean pay me too much?
But like,
So
don't volunteer to say it if you don't have to, right? There's like, no.
So one of the things that great salespeople do is ask really good questions. And the nice thing about questions is this, is if you ask the right question, you can actually change the brain chemistry of the person you're talking to. So it's like, well, tell me about the first time you moved into this house. What was that like? And all of a sudden they light up and they go back to that memory and they experience all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do in the next house that we find you, to just amp that feeling up.
Yeah.
Basically, take care of your family in a bigger way. And just by doing that, you get to invoke emotion, and facts don't sell, emotions sell.
Exactly. Urgency, especially urgency is big. I mean, we just went through that market, right? It's like people are putting in blind offers, but it's all because of urgency. It has nothing to do with anything else, but like you said, emotions sell, right?
So let's say you are talking to a realtor that's been in the business for 4 years, doing 10 transactions a year. So like not well at all.
Yeah.
Grand scheme of things, but they've got talent. The thing they're missing is sales. So what would be 5 pieces of advice you'd give that agent to amp up their sales ability so they actually go from the 10 transactions to 20 that year?
Yeah. 10 transactions with different people.
Yeah. So let's say just a regular agent and they just kind of like stumble through their career and not earning a lot, but they've got potential.
First thing I would say is always go for the listing. If you're gonna do that, like the listing is the kingpin, like, you know, and you get the listing, you get the kingpin. So like, you got a cold call at that point. If your network is not big enough, like you should be going out to networking events and meeting people face to face and explaining to them why you're why you can, like, what you can offer them. You have to sell your service, right? And sometimes you gotta become the person they want you to be. You know what I mean? That's another sales thing, right? So it's like, businessmen like different, first-time home buyers, you need to treat different. So that's the other thing I would say is.
So hold that thought for a minute. I was at an event and there was a really nervous looking lieutenant, state trooper, Maryland state trooper. He's pacing back and forth. And I go, hey, dude, what's going on? So I got to get up on stage and I got to do a presentation. So we start chit-chatting. And one of the things he did was he is a really good interrogator.
Right.
He says, when they bring a criminal in, if they're a trucker, I go home and I change into jeans, boots, and a plaid shirt, and I come into the interrogation room and just start chatting with them. If it's a banker, I go home and I get a suit and I look really, really like the banker. So when I want to get a confession, I dress like that person. I don't force them on anything. What I do is I just build rapport with that person. And after a time, they go, hey, dude, this is what really happened. And they confess. So he doesn't do any coercion to do that. He's basically just connecting with them as a human being.
Yes, exactly. And you have to be you just have to be charismatic. Like, I mean, it's you have to be able to talk with anybody, you have to understand different cultures, how to be respectful to that culture, right? Like, I have a lot of Chinese clients and they don't like the number 4, right? And
do you know why they don't like the 4?
I knew the reason. And then
here's the reason why. A homonym is where 2 words sound the same, but they have 2 different meanings.
Right.
And 4 in Chinese is a homonym for death. So I think that's a bad omen. If you ever see a car with 444 in the number plate, 100% no Asians driving that freaking car.
I know, yeah.
But if it's got 3 8s, 8's a lucky number for them. There's a Chinese dude in that car for sure.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Like, even Armco, my family's company, had a bunch of buildings they were building in Montreal, and they've named the project EQ8, equilibrium number 8, because a lot of
To
the
attract
buyers.
the buyers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they went and they promoted it in China, right? So
And would you like to come on the 8th floor? Boy, yeah, I want the 8th floor and the 8th apartment on the 8th floor. That's the lucky one.
like in China, I don't even think they have a fourth floor. I think it just goes 3 to 5.
Like in our culture, sometimes we don't have the 13th floor. They
Yeah,
missed the fourth,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, the fourth, and there's another number. I think it might have been 18, but like stuff. So you have to understand the cultures a lot too, because it's big. Like it's a big deal to them, right? And yeah, you don't want to be disrespectful in any type of way. And then like to the point where I had like I think we were gonna write an offer. I mean, one of my Chinese clients for 5,000 or 564,000, and they're like, make it 568, like,
Oh yeah,
when like it's to that point, they'll spend an extra $4,000.
just to get
But
the right number. Yeah, brilliant. So, Jonathan, let me ask you this: you like a lot of movies.
Yeah,
You like a lot of characters. Who's the character that you'd like to be like?
I would like to be like, I mean, I really respect
Mary Poppins? Like, who would it be?
I like Ray Dalio. I mean, like do you mean character like a fictional or
Yeah, a fictional character.
fictional? That's a tough one. Like a more. I'm trying to think of what business movies I watch. Which ones? There's so many good ones. A less. I like a more moral version of Gordon Gekko.
Yep, makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to do like I think he was insider trading in the movie, and then he was doing some stuff that he was I don't know, he's gonna fire like tens of thousands of people or something like that. So and hurt the economy. So like a more moral version of him, you know.
Okay, I'm going to give you a movie recommendation if you've not seen it. It's called Other People's Money with Danny DeVito.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it. I got it. It sounds good.
He's the guy that goes into companies, buys them, and just splits them off and fires people, but of course gets a heart at the end of the movie. So, yeah. Jonathan, what's one piece of advice you'd give realtors that would help them become better, stronger, faster?
Better, stronger, faster. I would tell them definitely get yourself out there. Get yourself to the networking events and just talk with people and really try and learn how you don't have to attract everybody you talk to, but if you make a mistake and that guy didn't sign with you, go reevaluate it and see what you did wrong, and then go back to the next networking event and eventually you'll
do better. Absolutely.
So like it's just a matter of putting in the work and being persistent in that way, right? So it's inevitable if you go to enough networking events and you talk to enough people, and like if you have the guts to do cold calls, door knocking, stuff like this, like you're just gonna it's inevitable that you're just gonna grow, right? So
you can get better. That's the thing. Don't take it personally. Just learn what you can. So I had this guy come in. He was a guy that sold branded merchandise, like, one of these water things with a logo on it.
Right.
And so he came in to see me and said, "Hey, Umar, when I go to networking events, I'm a wallflower. I'm off to the side. If someone comes to talk to me, I'll talk with them, but I can't approach new people." So I said, "Okay, tell me about a particular time you went to a networking event and you wanted to go approach someone and you didn't. Well, you did it badly." He says, "Oh yeah, I was going to this thing and there was a guy there I really wanted to meet, but I just couldn't get there." I said, "Okay, in your mind's eye, I want you to go back to that networking event and see what you saw, all the people there." He says, "I'm seeing it. Hear what have you heard? People chit-chatting, your inner thoughts. When you do those two things, you get to re-experience what you were feeling." And he goes, "That's weird, man. I'm feeling it now. It's an uncomfortable feeling right here." Yeah. And tool from neuroscience you can use to link this feeling to the unconscious mind that records everything. And as soon as we linked that tool, a childhood memory came up, and this was the memory. He went from rural Maryland, where there was like a schoolhouse with 12 kids in it, to Baltimore City with a 2,000 person high school.
Right.
And it was his first day at school. He's overwhelmed with everything. And as he's leaving school for the day, he has to get on the school bus, and they got 25 school buses. And this guy, he asked, "Which school bus should I get on?" this guy on purpose sent him to the wrong bus.
The wrong bus, yeah.
And that guy ended up being his best friend later on, but he sent the
Yeah.
wrong bus, and he was on the bus. And at the end of the route, the bus driver looks up at the rearview mirror and says, "Don't worry, kid, I got you." But the feeling of being lost in the sea of people was a childhood experience that blocked him from networking. So he went in, we changed the belief around it, and got a call back from him saying, "Hey man, I'm going to networking events. I can talk to anybody that I want." And that's the power of mindset. And that's kind of the work I do, is very much figure out what in here blocks you from being freaking fantastic. And that makes every day a joyous day for me, because I get to change lives.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I just spent a month and a half in Armenia, and like just being in the east part of the world and seeing how different the mindset is there. Some people have never left their village or their country, and they're just, they're the happiest people in the world, but like, they don't know what else is out there, and this and that. But it's just perspective, right? I mean, like, this is a weird example. I mean, even like North Korea, like some people could be the happiest people in the world.
Yeah, probably.
They wouldn't even know, you know what I mean? They wouldn't even know.
I'll leave you with this story. It's an old story. It's an allegory. It's this American business guy in Mexico, and it's a small resort town. And there's a guy goes out fishing every day, and he comes back with his catch. And the guy says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm a fisherman. I go catch fish, and that's how I make my income."
Yeah.
He goes, "Dude, you look happy, but come on, man, you got to do more. You need to actually go out for a longer period of time and catch more fish." He said, "Well, if I did that, what would that do?" "You'd make more money." "Well, what would I do with more money?" "You'd buy another boat, and you'd have like an employee. And then if you got that, then you'd be able to get more boats and more employees and get a fishing plant and a processing plant. And this is how you achieve." He says, "Then what would I do?" "Then you would retire. And then what would I do?" "Then you can go fishing and not have to worry about that stuff."
Do whatever
And
you
it's
want.
like, so we don't need to just go out blindly. If you're a realtor, you need to figure out what kind of realtor you want to be and what you want to build, and never lose sight of happiness, because happiness, my friends, is how you measure life.
Oh yeah.
There's no point killing yourself, building an empire, saying one day I'll be happy. It's like, if you have happiness now, you'll be a better business person.
Exactly.
You'll build faster.
You won't burn out. Burn out, which is a serious thing in real estate. You know what I mean? Especially when the market's hot and you're exhausted, but deals are coming, and like you can't say no to a deal because like something. And
it all depends on mindset too, because you can be the surfer on the wave with all these transactions and still be cool, or you could be caught up in the wave and being like half drowned and beaten by the wave. And so it's all about this. And that's the most important. That's the number one determining element on how well you do in life, is mindset. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, easily. Like Ray Dalio, he runs the biggest hedge fund in the world, and he says, "My biggest contribution to success is me learning transcendental meditation."
Absolutely.
And there's so many famous people who talk about transcendental meditation, or like successful people, and like you just have to clear the mind, and
so would you like me to give you a lesson in meditation that's super simple?
For sure. Yeah.
All right. So this is what you do. You just take a breath in and notice the coolness on your nostrils. So breathe through your nose. And just feel the coolness on your nostrils when it goes out. And when you breathe out through your nose, feel the warmth. That's it. Do that for 10 minutes. When it gives you something to do, because you're noticing your nostrils, your mind doesn't wander as much. And if it does, it's okay. It's like, "Oh, I need to collect rent here." It's like, okay, noted. Then back to the breathing. It's as simple as that. That's the simplest meditation I know.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like,
good place to start.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Transcendental is almost like the same idea, except they don't focus that much on breathing, but they have a mantra, and you say the mantra over again. So
and that keeps your mind occupied. Absolutely.
Yeah, but they say let your mind drift. They said let it drift. You know what I mean? And it goes, and then
there's many ways to achieve that. I'll leave you with one last cartoon. It's a Dalai Lama-esque kind of guy.
Yeah.
And the other monks have gotten him a gift. And they present him with a gift, and the caption reads, and he opens up the box and it's empty. And this Lama guy goes, "Oh my God, thank you so much. That's what I always wanted, nothingness." Jonathon, thank you so much for being on the program. Really enjoyed our conversation and looking forward to our next.
Yes, me too. Me too. Thanks again. This is great.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.